Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you might be. My name is JP, and I've got Christos and Yafet here today. Christos, of course, is here every day. We've got Yafet as our special guest today.
Hi, I'm
Good
Christos.
morning.
Hi, I'm Christos. I'm a developer advocate for the identity team. And today with us we have Yafet. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I like the back and forth you guys have.
Yeah.
It's never too early.
It's never 45. So it could be early. I mean, that's the whole point of the name. It's the 45 show.
Well, we did push it up an hour. When we first started, it was 7 a.m. for Christos, so I can understand how how it was way too early for him. 7 a.m. I'm not even out of bed.
So JP goes, let's do the show.
And he goes, I don't know what happened there for a sec. Sorry.
You're pressing buttons. I think it's the COVID vaccine, man. You're all messed up.
I'm a little fuzzy today.
I thought the 425 meant like the 425 zip code for like the Seattle Bellevue area.
It is.
It does.
It is.
It does. Okay, so it is. Okay.
It does mean that.
But it's also the HTTP code for too early. So HTTP 425 is too early. So we thought, that's perfect.
Because
and then of course
10 a.m.
We had
10 a.m. You need to check what time zone. 10 a.m. Don't ever agree on anything unless you check the time zone. Lesson learned.
Yeah, I live in the middle of nowhere in South Carolina. Thus, I'm on East Coast. Christos is on the other coast. So.
Oh, Sahil is online. Sahil, this show is just for you. We don't care about any other guests. Obviously, we care about our viewers, but this is a one-to-one for you because you've been bugging us since October 9th. So your wish is our command. We are actually doing Kotlin Android with BTC today. You can have it. But before we do that, we have Yafet, and Yafet is here to talk about exciting stuff with PHP. Right, Yafet? Like, what is this guy about?
Well, yeah. Thanks. Wow, I don't know, this new love for PHP, I don't know where it's coming from. But
we need to check a box. Our boss told us to be inclusive, so we need to bring more languages. And you got the short end of the stick. You have to do the PHP stuff.
The PHP, okay.
Yeah.
it'll be perfect.
Or Ruby. You got experience with Ruby, right? Hey Bolt. Hey Bruce. Hey Vicious. Good morning to everyone. Thanks for joining us. Today Yafet is going to talk to us about. No, I'm just kidding. Yafet, what do you do, buddy? And why are you here today?
Yeah, thanks, Christos. So I'm a PM on the loyalty team and identity, and today I kind of wanted to walk through the new app service authentication experience, otherwise popularly known as EzAuth.
Are we allowed to call it EzAuth these days, or is there like a moratorium on the name?
So I'll reference it as EzAuth in the show, but when you are on the app service blade, the blade itself is actually called authentication, right? Mm-hmm. But if anyone in the chat, if anyone watching has a strong sentiment against it, then I can use authentication also.
Because what's the formal name is what? App Service Authentication, which is
App Service Authentication. Yeah,
about the most Microsoft name we could come up with. So, and now we've got App Service Authentication V2, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
don't steal his thunder. He's gonna talk about the new. It's not preview anymore. It's GA stuff, right?
Is it preview or GA?
GA.
It's GA now. Yes.
Okay, cool. Are you ready to show it to us? Can we take a look?
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
So I'm gonna start by going over how creating an app service initially. I'm sure most of you are familiar with app service. App service is a platform where you can basically build, deploy, scale your web apps or APIs via functions. And so let me kind of walk through creating a web app really quickly. It's usually pretty easy. 425. For this show, I'll call it Ruby.
Yes, I'm telling you, Yafet is stepping up on the challenge.
One of the great things about app service is that you can do it in code, you can do a Docker container, you can have several like different types of runtime stacks that you can use. Again, we're going to use Ruby for today. You can do Linux or Windows, and it's super easy to create, right? Like it's pretty much done.
Central US too. Thank you for being inclusive of people like
Very
me
inclusive, you know. But
that don't live on the West Coast.
and we have people from London this morning. Smart Spring 1, welcome to our stream. You're from London. How's London these days? Are you guys staying safe? Are you being vaccinated? Bold is actually it's calling out Microsoft's naming abilities. Hey, you know, it's hard. Did you know that we actually have a team called the Naming Council, and you cannot name anything that is going to go in the public domain until you go through them? They're such a delight to work with. It takes months to actually get a name through. I'm not kidding. That was my bane of my life in marketing. Pubs are open. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I heard about that. Pubs are open in the UK, so that's great. They should be having a drink in the pub and watching us.
So our app service loaded up. So when you come to the overview page in app service, you'll find two authentication blades. This authentication classic would be the old experience. And so today we'll be going over the new one. And just to kind of give some context, over the last couple of months, the team has really spent a lot of time in better understanding what is the day one experience and how could we make it as simple as possible for users to integrate auth. And at the same time, how do we make it somewhat not only easy but more robust, right? So whereas in many like very common experiences, like I'm using authentication, but I'm also authorizing users or wanting to collect data via the graph, we try to combine these experiences into one, right? Which you'll see. So here I'm going to add my identity provider, and then it kind of kicks off the wizard. And one of the beauties about EzAuth is you have the choice to add several identity providers, right? It's not just Microsoft specific or AAD specific. You can, if you're building a website and you want to sign in users via Facebook, Google, Twitter, you're able to do that. But for today, I'm just going to go over doing it with AAD. And the first thing that after selecting an identity provider with AAD, you create your app registration. And one best practice around this is we typically recommend that for every app service or site or function that you create an app registration for that specific site or function. And the reason is that so you keep the permissions that you're requesting if you are requesting permissions separate, right? If Christos is you created an app to do X and then you created another app to do Y, maybe the types of permissions you request may not be the same. And so just as a security best practice, it's best to keep them separate. So here I'm going to create a new app registration. You can pick an existing one if you have one already, or you can provide the details for one. Sometimes developers do that to modify the issuer URL. And I'm going to require authentication, meaning that everyone trying to come to this site will have to authenticate. And then for this, I'm also going to I'm going to do HTTP 302, and this is just because this is a site, right? The token store, you can turn this on or turn this off, but essentially what it does, it collects and stores and refreshes tokens for your app. So if your application codes need to access data from like Microsoft Graph API, for example, you typically would have to write code, collect, to come back and retrieve the token. And so this is really an easy way for you to not have to maintain your tokens.
Okay.
And I might have done something wrong here. It says...
Maybe it's the name.
Yeah, it's
I think
I think it might be the name. Require. Okay, let me actually skip the part. I didn't do permissions. So baked into the experience is you're able to add a permission, add like Graph API permissions, and for this, I'll just add user email, update permissions, add.
Well, we have a question. Can EzAuth be used for headless applications too, or the app which doesn't understand OAuth or modern authentication? I suspect on a web job, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So you should be able to. Yes.
And Azure Functions. So if you're running Azure
So
Functions, APIs, right?
Yeah. So if you have an API, similar thing. And if you go through the functions experience on the portal, it will look like the left-hand pane where the authentication blade is located will look the same way in that portal experience as well. So you don't have to remember two ways of how to do it.
Yes.
So we have it all set up, pretty quick and easy. Now let's go try it out.
Let's try it out.
Typically, it takes a couple minutes. So hopefully. Oh, there we go. It's
not even 2 minutes. Are you doing something on a different screen? Because
I'm using the Authenticator app on my phone, and so
nice.
And here you go. You saw that we requested some profiles, some permissions, and so you're gonna get that request. And
yeah, that didn't show on the screen. I think it was on the side screen.
The Authenticator app where I signed in. Is that what you're referring to?
Where you can send into the permissions.
No, your browser, I think. I think we're only seeing the portal screen. We only see the Azure portal.
Correct.
Oh, okay. So let me. Wow. Let's see here.
So Bolt is asking whether you can section off allowing certain screens, and the answer is no. Is that correct, Yafet? You cannot. You can have certain parts of the website being anonymous, and then certain parts of the website requiring authentication. Right? It's an on-off switch. It's either yes or no. You can't have fine tuning. Yes. Ooh, JP is coming with his hacky tool. You can use a special authorization JSON file, but is that documented? Are we allowed to? Are we encouraging people to use that?
It's documented on Stack Overflow because clearly that's where all the documentation is, right?
Yafet's like, damn, these guys.
I think there's I'm sure there's a way, and we've also seen a lot of people essentially do the EzAuth flow, but do it locally, and so where they would upload a script or an ARM template. So we've seen that as well. And that, I guess, when we look at the new experience, we kind of look at it as it's easy for someone who may not have that experience or may not be going too far into the weeds as much. But I'm sure you should be able to.
Is this new feature something that people need to sign up for? I have Gover on Discord saying that his authentication blade looks very different. I think he's still using the legacy one, right? The previous.
Yeah. So you're probably using the classic the classic blade, and if you go to the blade now.
Okay.
If you go to the new blade, you should see a tab or a button that says upgrade. And so if you click that button, it will essentially automatically upgrade you to this this experience. And so you can start to manage your app through that experience.
Is it true that you can't go back to the previous experience once you do that?
You cannot return.
It's a one way. Just be aware that if you switch it on. I mean, we want people to go to the new experience anyway because it's GA. But if you're in the new experience, it's my understanding you can go back. But if you create a new app service, you can then use that. You can use the old experience on that new app service.
Do you have to have a new app service for the new blade to work, or could I take an old app service before this was released and it still work?
That's a
Yeah,
good
so I
question.
think can I take an old app service and go to the new experience? Yes.
Okay, cool.
Smart Spring 1 is asking, is there a risk doing that with a live app?
Upgrading to the new experience.
I suspect switching on EzAuth, is that what you're asking, Smart Spring? Or sorry, switching on the authentication experience. Can't say it, man. I like EzAuth. Yes, upgrading.
I would.
Yeah. Oh, upgrading.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say I would recommend that. I mean, if you have any special or very specific settings or that you double check as you post upgrade. But I think if it's a basic scenario, it should be fine. But if there are specific settings that you may have for your app, then I would double check that as you do it. And if you try it and there's any concern or any feedback that you may have, like, please definitely use this button up here. Send us your feedback, and we take a good look at those pretty regularly. And now that this is GA, we want to, if we find any bugs, we want to iron them out as quick as possible. So getting your feedback is really key to this.
So that's a very good point that the Smart Spring is raising. Just a bit concerned about not being able to roll back. I suspect that even if you use slots, because the EzAuth setting is at the application service layer level, then your slots will also inherit the same settings, which means that you cannot really test it on a slot only. It has to be across the whole app service. And therefore, if you are concerned about breaking something or not being able to roll back, I would say spin up a different app service to test the settings and that everything is working. And then once you're comfortable and confident, then you go back to your main live app and do the upgrades. Whoa, Bolt is coming with all the questions. So next question. It's awesome, but regarding the authentication rules, but what about role-based access?
So you should be able to do role-based access in the same blades. And so you should be able to go to the access control blade and grant access or role assignments accordingly. If that is what we're referring to, are you saying, or is the question more around?
I think it's more about role-based authorization within the application. So
okay.
Whether your app can get roles and information through EzAuth.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are really two main ways. Like, we can do it at the Azure AD level with enterprise applications, right? Requiring assignment. We can require app role assignment, and if you're not in an app role, then Azure AD will just refuse to sign you in. You have to turn on app role assignment required for that. Yeah. But then the claims that EzAuth gets, those are still accessible to the app, right? Like, there's still a way for us to get maybe not the raw token, but the claims that were in the token in the app via EzAuth, right? So there's a URL, I believe. It's been a while since I did any EzAuth, but there's a URL that you can hit inside of your app that will give you back the claims of the user.
You can get it in Kudu. So if you go to the Kudu portal, you can find it in the, I think it's in the environment settings.
Yeah,
that's where you can get that URL.
So yeah, so if I was going to do RBAC in an effort to keep it simple, like if I came here and turned this on and then wanted to enforce roles, I would likely go the enterprise app route, because I can just do it straight from the portal and say, you're in a role, you're not. And if you're in a role, you can pass through. And if you can't, you can't. And then, things like .NET are going to read, if you have to read the role claims, but things like .NET, you can use the authorized tags for. So, yeah.
Correct. So I have a question. when should people use this one or this experience over rolling, say, Azure Active Directory authentication with MSAL in their app? Or can we do both? Can we do a mix and match, and rather than choosing one or the other, we complement each other? What's the recommendation here for people new to EzAuth and identity?
I would say it would depend very much on like the scenarios, like the identity scenarios you're trying to capture with your app, right? EzAuth is a good, easy way to basically a gateway to authenticate the users coming into your application. But if there is a more deeper scenario you're trying to get into where the functionality is much, I guess you're somewhat of a pro and you're trying to use other identity features, maybe going down the MSAL route would be much easier. So as you start off, maybe when you're trying to authenticate users, just only authenticating users coming to your site, EzAuth would be perfect, right? As you get deeper into the scenario and you're trying to add several identity features, maybe MSAL would be more up your level, just because of the ability to modify modify how it works much more as opposed to EzAuth.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And so, I mean, it's a lot like for the .NET folks who might be familiar, it's like checking the authentication box in IIS on like an on-prem server, right? Like your app kind of doesn't have to know that this is happening. So it's sort of happening before requests ever make it to your app. And I think older stuff too, legacy stuff, or things that maybe the person who wrote it has retired, gone out of business, etc. If you've got a web app that's on-prem today and you want to move it up to Azure, this is a great way to sort of check a box and say, okay, don't let anybody in except for people who I allow, or make sure they authenticate before. I know we talked to some folks internally who are doing the same thing because they don't want to have to build auth into the app. They want to just check a box and say, okay, cool. If you don't have an account, you can't get in. And it's just perfect for that kind of stuff.
Yep. Somebody has a question. Webmonger. Okay, I'm getting better with reading these names. Okay. We had this question recently. Should we use APIM and EzAuth for functions, or whether APIM to functions would do the work and do the work in the function? Okay. That's a good question. Do we let the platform deal with the auth component, or do we use APIM to do the front door proxy stuff, and then EzAuth handle the token validation in the code? Yafet, what would be your take in that solution?
That's a good question. I'm not as familiar with that scenario, so I can't give my recommendation or my thought, but I'm not as familiar with that scenario, so I maybe I can follow up after.
Sure.
I think APIM is. I mean, APIM's going to have a whole lot of extra stuff, right? Like you've got caching and you've got subscription keys and products and all sorts of ways to slice and dice API access and pricing and how you want to charge people and how they can test stuff and whatever. And so, and APIM can also use Azure AD or OAuth to call the backend server. So,
correct.
As it's an Azure function and it's kind of sitting on the internet, I mean, there are ways to make them private, sure, but as it's sitting there, having Azure AD Auth as sort of or having EzAuth there as sort of as a backstop is certainly helpful. And it also means that your decision to use APIM is not necessarily driven on the authentication bit, and it's more driven on do you need the caching, do you need the protection, do you need the the request and response manipulation that you get with something like APIM.
Yes.
For dev, for test, I tend to use functions directly, but if I'm going to put something in production, chances are I'll put something like APIM in front of it, because it also helps them to sort of version your APIs correctly and build the surface there, and then how you compose that surface from the individual APIs is completely abstracted from the callers, which is nice because it means you can be flexible in how you host your API, and APIM is your sort of always your front door. So I think if you were to go the route of APIM, you could always use EzAuth in addition, and use that to secure your API directly, and then use the OAuth stuff in APIM to connect back to it. One other thing too would be how far downstream you want your identities to go. So do you want, take something like Microsoft Graph, right? The Graph composes APIs from dozens and dozens of different services, from like Exchange Online and SharePoint and OneDrive and Azure AD and a bunch of different things, right? And if I build my API surface there, do I want that identity to be used to talk to Graph and let Graph figure out what I'm allowed to see? Or do I want that token to pass all the way down to, say, the Exchange Online API that's going to be back, that Graph is ultimately going to call on my behalf? And typically, I don't want to say it's always the case, but in a lot of cases we see, especially in microservices and these sort of, composable APIs, typically we see a lot of folks dealing with the authorization at the API surface layer sort of right there at the edge, because your permissions may be composed of multiple APIs anyway. Being able to read my files, for example, in Graph, that might require 5 APIs to fulfill. And so do we want all 5 of our APIs to have to stay in sync with each other in terms of how they look at the user and what they do with the user? Or do we want to let something like Graph as the proxy handle it? And that's a big, that's not a question that we can say definitively yes or no, but it's certainly something to consider, is how you foresee the rest of your downstream dependencies handling the users, and if you want to do that yourself, or if you want the code to do it on their own. So
yeah, there are pros and cons with this approach, and depending on, I would say that from my experience, it all comes down to what are you going to do with the token claims inside your function. Is it more of I need to make sure that there's a valid token coming in, or do I need to have an access token and look into the token to get some information that will be vital for the flow of the function? In that case, EzAuth probably is not going to help you. But they're both valid scenarios. I think both can be used in architecture depending on what you're doing. So the answer is it depends.
Yeah, Bolt's asking if.
Yeah, that's a good question.
What Bolt's asking is actually a really great question, which is less application auth in favor of more infrastructure auth. And I don't know. It's an interesting question, and I think you'll find people on both sides of that. You'll find people on both sides of that fence. People who believe that infrastructure auth is the future and that we should proxy everything, and that 20 years ago it's all a big circle, right? And then you'll have other folks who, I don't think it's ever going to be the one thing works for everybody, right? Like infrastructure auth is great if you're an administrator, is great if you are a dev who doesn't want to deal with it and you just need to sort of deal with your front door. I think it is very much it's an app by app decision. And a lot of it depends on what you have to do. If you need to be looking at the tokens and digging through them and figuring out who is this user and where do they come from and what's their tenant ID and what sort of organization are they a member of, that sort of thing, I think you'll probably always still have to have some code that goes and does that, because all you're really going to do is, if you expect the provider to do it, then now we're going to go back to Yafet and say, hey, Yafet, we need like full code, extensibility and configuration for EzAuth. And all we're doing is kicking our identity logic down from our app upstream into this proxy, right? And I think that's, it's a hard decision to make. And I think, can we foresee everything that you're going to need to do in code and give you a configuration knob for it? I don't know, right? Can we make it extensible enough that you can go write your code and let the container run it, let the proxy run it? I don't know. And so I don't know. I think there'll always be there'll definitely be plenty of room for both.
Exactly. Yafet, what is the next step
Awesome.
for our audiences or our audience? Where do we want our developers to go? What's the next step, and how do they get hold of you if they have any problems?
Yeah.
Or
So
questions? Might not be problems.
if you're going through this experience in real time and you have any feedback or you get stuck somewhere, definitely use this send us your feedback tab, and then you can tell us about your experience. We check this very frequently, so and we've already gotten some good feedback on some of the bugs that have been ironed out. So we definitely take a look at that. Otherwise, I guess I can share an email. I don't know how.
I mean, we've got in product feedback, right? So we've got the send us your feedback button up here. There's always Microsoft Q&A.
Yes.
So if you have issues, you can put them out there because we have teams of folks who go out there and figure it out. We got a short link to it if you're interested. You can always come and join us in Discord, and we'll make sure that it gets there. But you can go to akWS/425show/help, and this will get you to Microsoft Q&A. And of course, engineers are standing by waiting for your call, right? But in-product feedback is probably one of the best ways to get it back in. But please, however you need to get a hold of us, that's there are various avenues to do it. So
yeah, definitely go check it out. Would love to hear any feedback and any thoughts on the experience.
Cool.
We added the same link at the same time. Hey, Yafet, that was brilliant, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming over. Thanks for showing us the new experience. It's definitely cool to see where the new experience is headed, and the fact that we have a new UI there for our developers. And we look forward to having you on the stream again when you have something new to show us. Or when you're ready to do some Ruby and Perl PHP programming.
Yeah, those days are behind me.
That's fine. Everyone is saying thank you for joining us. Thanks everyone for the awesome questions. And we'll let Yafet go and do some important work while we continue to mess around now with Kotlin and Android and Azure AD B2C. Thanks, Yafet.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Yafet. So yeah, have a great weekend. All right.
Right, just the two of us and our friends.
So there are a couple things before we move on. There are two questions. One, staging slot. Since the app services, when you do a staging slot, it's a totally separate app. You can do it on one and not on the other because you're going to have two different URLs anyway. So you'll have, my app and then my app dash stage or whatever.
Also, you can set up EzAuth on the individual slot.
You can. Yep.
Oh, nice.
And then the second question was about B2C.
Yes.
And B2C is doable. It requires a little bit of domain knowledge.
We did a stream about this some time ago, right? Remember? Back in October?
Maybe vaguely remember. October. God, it feels like it was 400 years ago.
Yeah.
So if you are, if you want to use B2C, so the things like create a new registration and these things, these aren't available for you, sadly, but that's okay. What you can do is provide details of an existing app registration. You'll need an app ID, a client secret, and an issuer. And the key to the issuer is that the issuer will be a B2C. It will be your B2C issuer. So
hold up. Can you unshare your screen and restart it because the stream is frozen? We are okay, but your monitor is frozen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's weird. Let's try again. Fixed. Okay. Oh, wait. I need to see. Yep, it's updated now. Yeah, cool. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, that's weird.
Oh,
I don't know why that happened.
It's still frozen.
Okay, well, that's fine. I'll unshare my screen and share it again.
Yeah, I don't know. It's broken. What do you prefer for microservices APIs? Infrastructure auth or AppAuth? Hey, I'm a developer. I'm all for AppAuth. There are things that, there's no flexibility when you use infrastructure auth. So that's fixed, JP. Thanks, buddy.
Cool.
But,
okay.
Yeah, that's my take.
So let's go to B2C. I'm going to go find an app, and we'll just create. I'm going to really quickly create a new one, and we'll call this EzAuth app. And it's going to be, I think, like, let's see, the name of this one is Anton Azure Websites.net. I think it's Auth AAD. I can't remember exactly what it is. We'll have to go back and look. But it's essentially the reply URL that comes out of EzAuth, which we can always go back and look at. So let's register this app. And we'll need our application ID, so our client ID. That's going to go here, and application client ID. I'm glad they've synced those up. We're going to go create a new secret. So whatever, we'll call this EzAuth delete me, since it's going to be on here. We'll make it 3 months, just in case I forget. Although the whole thing shouldn't be. The whole thing will be visible. So we're going to create our secret.
It will be visible. You're not scared.
We've got our secret. We drop that in there. And then our issuer URL, this is where things are going to get a little bit more creative.
Yep.
So the issuer URL is going to be driven by the user flow that you're using, right? So this could be a custom policy. It could be a regular policy. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to use one of the standard ones. Let's use this Suzy Rec one. So the fastest way to get to the data URL that you need, is to come to your flow and click Run Now, and then you'll see this. So this, if we take this link, this is our OpenID configuration data. So if we go here, let's go put this in the browser, and we'll go take a look at what it looks like. And this has all the goop that you need to make this work, right? So there are a couple things. The issuer value here, if we were to try to use this issuer value will fail. And because this issuer value, if we take this and we try to put well-known blah, blah, blah after it, the well-known OpenID configuration, etc. If we try to put this after that issuer value without the P at the end, we're going to get a 404, right? So instead, we have to be a little bit more creative about it, and we actually have to change our user flow around a little bit. So we'll go back to our user flow, and we'll go to properties. And in here, we are going to change the issuer value.
The fact that you know that, it just scares me, but it's fine. Continue, please.
It's just a bunch of time of beating your head against the wall. I've gone through more brick walls than I have skulls.
Yeah, so we need to document this. Maybe we'll do a blog post about EzAuth with B2C, because I don't think it's a documented scenario.
So in our properties, in the properties for our user flow, so this is under properties for a specific flow, we've got token compatibility settings. And if we look, we have one that lets us change the issuer claim. And the big difference you'll see between these two is one of these doesn't mention the policy at all. This one does mention the policy, this B2C_1_Suzy_rec. This issuer claim will give us a policy-specific issuer value that does have OpenID metadata after it, and the OpenID metadata is ultimately what this issuer is going to use to do that.
Very nice.
So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this. So this is going to be TFP, which stands for Trust Framework Policy. So we'll put TFP in our issuer URL. And then the other thing we're going to do is add our policy name in the URL itself. So this is our tenant ID. It's your tenant GUID. So we're going to put B2C_1_Suzy_rec.
Is this not what we do in the apps as well, right? Within our apps. Is that not the same URL that we use in app configurations?
No, because you'd have to change this every time otherwise.
Oh, right.
And the thing is, like, that's the thing. So this says issuer URL. That's what it says here, right? The thing about it, however, is that this isn't actually just the issuer's URL. This is because issuer itself is just a value, right? The issuer is just a value in the claim. The problem is that what is in the spec and what these services are expecting to do is they're expecting to take this issuer URL, right, and append .wellknown/OpenID-configuration to this issuer URL to go fetch this metadata document. And by fetching this metadata document, it can configure itself. It knows, okay, this is the issuer. This is where I get the keys that I use to go and validate tokens. These are the kinds of responses that are supported. These are the kinds of claims or the kinds of scopes that I can ask for, et cetera, et cetera. So all this is done when you put this in here. couple things have this problem. So app service is going to have this problem. You're going to have to change your thing. PlayFab auth is going to have this problem, and anything else that's expecting this metadata document when you do it is going to be a problem. So then the allowed token audiences value. The token audience is essentially the who the token is issued for, and generally speaking, in the case of B2C, that is your app ID. Mm-hmm. So what we'll do is we're going to run this app. We're going to run a test with jwt.ms, and we're going to go check what audience is coming back. The audience value should be our app's ID.
Yep.
I get signed in here to B2C. Oops.
So Sahil, while you're doing that, Sahil is asking, how can we do this with custom policy and change issuer, bold, provider response, which was you need to use policy variables to set the issuer to the correct format. But is there a hackier way to do this or a better way to do this?
You set the format in the policy. I mean, right. you ultimately have complete and utter control over how things get spit out of get spit out of custom policy. So yes. If you need a specific issuer value, then you spit out a specific issuer value.
Nice.
So we're going to put in our token audience of BF789, which is actually, no, this is the incorrect one. This is not the right one because this is for a different app.
Yes.
So our application ID should be the same as our token audience. We're going to require authentication. We're going to 302 all of them, and let's go. So permissions, we can't do anything on that because it's not Azure AD, right? It's not traditional Azure AD. So we've added identity provider settings. Cool. So that all looks good. So now let's go back to our app and see what happens. So I'm just going to copy this URL. We'll take it over here. And Euler.
Oh.
I'm at b2clogin.com, which is great.
Does not recycle the app when you set it for the first time. Therefore, it might take a while to...
Well, it looks like it is taking us over to B2C. I'm probably in a redirect loop because, to be honest, I don't actually know what's running in that app service, and it might be something that we need. So if I go to, let's go here. So if we go to this website, it looks like we're getting redirected to B2C, which is great. Although, you know why? I don't have the correct reply URL in there. So let's go fix that because, like I said, I kind of wasn't sure what that was going to be to begin with, and it looks like the one that I had was a bit different. So let's do a URL decode. So there's a well-known endpoint, obviously not well-known enough to me. There's a well-known documented endpoint for EzAuth, and it's .auth/login/AAD/callback. This URL is going to be whatever your URL is. Now, it could also be your custom domain if you have a custom domain in your web app. Yep. So this is where Azure AD is going to send the token back. And so because of that, we need to go to our app registration and update that. So let's go back to our app. Too zoomed here. Back to our app registration. I think we called this EzAuth something. Yeah, EzAuth app. And under authentication, we're going to get rid of this one, and we're going to put this one in. So there's our thing. Everything looks good. We'll save that up. And now we should be squared away. So let's go back and try our app again. So Anton.azurewebsites.net. I made a website with my buddy and thus had to I put his name after it
to make him happy.
Yep. Okay, so we saved this. That looks like it got saved. We'll give it a refresh just to make sure. Give it a second to update, and I'll close this window just so we don't. We're definitely in a redirect loop, but let's see if that's just a.
I saw that.
See where that problem is.
Blessing.
Okay, we should be good now. I think.
Hit it.
Should be all squared away. So let's hit our website and let's see what is going on. I'm going to hit my F12 here. So we keep on getting authorize. Okay. So I'm going to stop this and see what's happening. So in our authorize that we get, We're going response type code ID token, which is what it does by default, which is hybrid flow, which isn't the best thing in the world. So that would lead me to believe we probably need to turn on implicit flow for this. That is most likely the problem that we are getting.
Yeah.
So we're getting a redirect.
Do you need to set a custom token? Sorry, custom property just to get the token back? Do we need to have an API permission, a dummy API permission, just to get the data back?
Well, we don't. I don't know if EzAuth is going to require a. I don't know if EzAuth is going to require an app. I think that's an MSAL bug specifically.
Okay.
So let's enable ID token for this.
With a heavy heart, JP just pressed the button there.
Trust me, I don't like this any more than you do. This hurts. This pains me to click this button as much as everybody else.
Yes, Bolt. It pains us.
Again,
that's true.
Here's the thing: if you're doing EzAuth.
Oh no, we lost Bolt. He's out.
Oh no.
No. He's like implicit. I'm out.
I know.
Hey,
I told you, Bolt. I don't.
We don't make the rules.
They give us a product and they say, "Can you guys go and see if this works?" And we're like, "Yeah, let's go look." Okay. All right. Good. So let me close this. Let me close this private window, and we'll get a fresh one. So we've enabled implicit. Sadly, we have the correct thing, I believe. Auth login AAD callback. So let's get a new private window. Let's try to go to my app and let's see what we get. Oh, interesting. So this is taking me to B2C, but it's redirected me back and telling me I don't have permission. So let's see what happened.
Ooh,
probably something else.
Admin consent on your permissions? Oh, you don't have permission to sign in?
Here we go.
What?
So the provided application is not configured to allow the OAuth implicit flow. So it's actually looking for an access token, even though it's not requesting one. So we're going to come in here. We're going to also check access token, even though we're not requesting one. And we're going to come back here and we shall do it again. So again, if you're interested in B2C and EzAuth, here you go.
This is what you have to go through. Oh, what is happening?
So let's see what it's doing here. So
one step at a time, folks. We'll get there.
We are in a private window. Okay. So we've got our authorize. So our authorize happened. And then let's see. We were sent back with, okay, so all that looks good. So then in our callback, we got a 401. It says the provided app is not configured to allow OAuth implicit. Did I not wait long enough? Maybe I didn't wait long enough. Or maybe I didn't
Surely doesn't take that long, doesn't it?
Now this could also be the same bug that we've seen with other parts of B2C. So I'm going to give it a minute to make sure that things make sure everything persisted. But if it didn't,
we need to create a custom permission and admin consent that so it will work.
Yep. So let's see what. So it's requesting OpenID profile and email. So those should be okay. That's essentially just a sign in. Yep. So that's just OpenID Connect. We should get an ID token back. Maybe the fact that we're not getting a code is what's causing this to blow up, which we can go fix. So let's go look. Let's go look at our configuration one more time and see if there's anything that we can do to override this. Edit. Okay. Token stores there. Allowed external redirect URLs. Okay. Require authentication. That all looks good. Yeah, I mean, there's not really a whole lot here. We'll save this. Okay. So.
Oh, snap. Bolt is coming with all the punches today. It sounds like we need to rename this channel to the Cowboy Show.
Why is that? I don't. There we go. Okay, it finally stuck. Okay.
Take it back, Bolt. I mean, just because we had to use implicit does not mean it was our choice. Damn it.
Okay, so let's go back. So let's go back to our app. Oh no, I didn't mean to close my whole thing. So let's go back to our app.
Anton.
Anton's watching like, why do they keep talking about me?
I am surprised you didn't put Anton first. Anton JPA.
Well, I try to prepend everything with my own stuff or with my own name. Anyway, okay. So we're going to try to go back to the Anton website. We get redirected to B2C, which is fantastic, which is good. This is sort of the first big step in making this work. And then now I don't know what app is actually running in here. So we may be in a position where it doesn't work because we get to the app and the app's like, I don't know who you are. And then it blows up. But I did sign in.
What happened?
I did sign in successfully, which is great.
Redirect URI doesn't work. Doesn't work.
No, it's yeah, there it is. So now I'm signed in.
What? We're in.
Yep.
There you go.
And we're in. Yep. Now,
Cowboy show that solves all the problems. That's for you, Bolt.
If we wanted to do more with that identity, there's a specific URL that we can hit in our code.
Oh, by the way, Microsoft Identity Web works with EzAuth, so now you can actually use Microsoft Identity Web with EzAuth in your app if you want to do stuff. Or you can go the route that JP is going to talk to us now. Go for it.
So the other thing that you can do if you need the user's claims, so we will send them. We will send them in a header, right?
Yep.
So you'll get them in the header, in the remote user variable, depending on the language that you're using. And there's also a
secret URL.
A URL that you can hit. Well, it's in here, so it's not super secret. But it's,
you have to know that there is a URL. I mean, just that means
it's literally documented, but it's okay. It's still secret because our docs are essentially opaque anyway, right? So we've got so when you want to access user claims, you'll get these headers: client principal name, client principal ID. If you want to get the user's data, you call this. You call auth.auth/me, and then that will go out and get you the claim set, so you can go and look at the claim set and do different things with it. And then, of course, you can also get tokens to go call your downstream services.
So is it root of your web app URL plus that, or is it the root plus your app name and that?
It is your app name, like whatever your root, whatever. So jpda-anton.azurewebsites.net /.auth/me.
Nice.
Where's my other window? Sorry, where's my private window with the Anton app in it? Did I close it?
I think you closed it.
Well, let's go back to it. jpda-anton azurewebsites.net. We should be prompted to sign in, and we are. Oops. So we're at B2C where we get signed in. And then I believe if we just do it here, .auth whack me. Now we see, here's my ID token. Here are the claims that were in that ID token. So just a typical thing you would expect from a B2C token, things like extension attributes that you might include, my emails, the trust framework policy, like the user flow that I use to sign in with, this other extension property and value. So so this is how you get them. And of course, you also get the raw ID token. And had we requested an access token, we would also be able to get that in here.
As long as you add it to the claims in your, in your claims attributes or application attributes.